mute and you can ask me questions specifically. That doesn't work for you and you want to remain more anonymous, that's fine. You can always type your questions into the comment section on YouTube or on LinkedIn Live. So any questions are on the table. Feel free to jump in at any time, and I will do my best to answer your questions. So I have been talking a lot about emotional intelligence and how that works in career advancement. I'm going to continue that topic today, and I'll circle back around in a bit and let everybody remind you how to join in. But when it comes to professional growth and any kind of leadership advancement, emotional intelligence is the most important thing. And the studies on this have gone back a long time now. Like, I think that everybody kind of knows this now. Back when people were looking at how to advance a leader, how to have them understand more of their environment, how to have them develop other people. What the research shows is that the number one thing is their emotional intelligence. You can think of it like, IQ is our intellectual quotient, how quickly we think about things, how fast does our computer work. Emotional intelligence is how much we're in touch with our emotions. Do we have access to our physiological responses to things? And the research on this is absolutely fascinating. Candace Pert, back in the 60s and 70s, and she did a lot of work on this. So this goes back a long time. And essentially, if I don't have access to the emotions that are happening in my body, I don't make decisions. I will procrastinate. I will do more research. I will find all kinds of excuses to not make a decision. So it's actually by allowing myself to be present with the feelings that are happening in my body that spurs me on to action. That has me do something. One of the biggest problems that people have is not taking action enough. Anybody will tell you this, that making mistakes is important. Learning how to make mistakes. That's, as adults, that's how we learn and grow. So there's always going to be some pain involved in making mistakes. So that's the context of emotional intelligence in your career. What works for people is for you to get more in touch with your feelings. That's going to give you better data about what's going on in the environment around you. And it will also free you up to respond, sometimes awkwardly, but if you're not doing it at all, then you're not taking action. So emotional intelligence is the foundational thing for career advancement. As you become a leader, it becomes more and more important for people to feel you, to get a sense of where you're coming from. Emotions are the universal language. So even if I have the exact right plan, if I'm not making emotional connections along the way of helping people see that plan through, it's going to be way less effective. So it's both. There's absolutely, we need good strategy, we need good planning, and we need to be able to connect emotionally. So that's the overarching theme of what I'm talking about. I'll share some more in there, but I wanted to check in with somebody who just joined on and see if there's anything that you want to give us an update on. It's been a minute since we talked, Eric, and I know I've seen you join in, but I didn't get to you the last couple of weeks. Any updates for us here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. So I oh Lord, gotta check my calendar to see. It's been a minute. but basically had an interview a few Thursdays ago. I want to say, what was that? Or Thursday the 8th, had an interview with the company. Then like later that afternoon, got a call for an offer. And then I had an interview the following day with another company, another final interview. And I was trying to get a hold of the HR person because I was trying to get a response from them because truthfully, I wanted company B over company A. So I'm freaking out about that. Then it turns out they were on vacation. So I was like, oh, okay. And then took a gamble where I turned down company A's offer to wait on company B's offer, which I got. And I'm planning on moving forward with that offer and taking that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's been a journey. Um, there's some back and forth with them on a couple terms, but definitely glad to be hopefully done for a while.
Okay, I hear you. But so, Eric, would you just walk us through what you have learned about yourself in this process? And I'll say for everybody who's listening in, Eric has been joining me using the educational stuff here as well as what other participants have shared for a while now. So he's operating in the context of, look, my career is a place for me to develop into the man I want to be. It's a way for me to reach my potential. I'm going into interviews where I'm curious about the company. I understand that I'm the buyer here, that I'm not just trying to sell myself, that they actually need to show me why I should be there and how that's so much more effective in that. And so Eric, I'm assuming that you're using this transition well and that you're learning a lot about yourself in the process. So I just wanted to give that context for everybody who's listening in.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a few takeaways. I think one of which I have to mention is don't underestimate yourself and what skills you have. I know in the last interview I had for company A, I asked my usual kind of end of interview question, which is basically something along the lines of, after, through what we've talked about today, everything I've answered, what we've talked about, are there any concerns or gaps that you had that I could address, that kind of thing. And then the interviewer stops me kind of near the end of the question. He's like, hey, look, I've got a response to you. And basically said that, you've got skills and your resume is really underselling you. Um, so I was
Whoa.
like, oh, okay, well, that's great in one sense. And then I was like, damn, in the other sense, my resume must really be that bad. Um, but so I'd say definitely don't underestimate yourself because you probably have a lot more skills and talents than you think you have. I think another key lesson is really know yourself in your career in terms of what you've done, what you can speak to, and what it can apply to what behavioral questions, either like the classic ones or maybe some twists that come up. Like definitely know your accomplishments inside and out.
Will you give
Yeah.
us a specific example of that? Something that's fresh in your mind? Walk me through
Now you got
example.
to put me on the spot, George.
Oh, you know it. You know I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I think there's one that I go to a lot for, like if they talk about conflict with boss, where at a role previous to this, I was launching an on-order website, and my boss wanted to implement this key or this feature on the website that was going to add time and money to the project. And through my own informal research, talking with customers and just talking with the IT folks who are going to be implementing it, it wasn't going to be optimal to try to force that feature onto this online website.
Mm.
So I had a heart to heart with him, kind of explained my position, made sure to kind of have data and facts behind it, kind of, and also sympathize with him that it would be really, really nice to have this, and also kind of left the door open to say, we can keep it in mind, and maybe if there's enough feedback, we implement it, but why don't we wait and see what the data tells us? And we launched the website on time and budget. And then, as far as I knew, there was never a peep from our end customers about this feature. And we ended up doing or crossing, I think, $1 million in sales within the first like 45 or 60 days of this website launching. And so that's kind of the answer I give that, you know, for a
Mhm.
question like that.
Okay. And what was the response when you shared that?
They're usually pretty impressed. I think especially when I add the dollar amounts to it at the end.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it illustrates kind of that setting, the stakes, the conflict, and then the resolution, which I think is a lot of times there's different various format names that is used, passed around, but it's basically that similar setup that everyone advises, hey, you want to use this format when you're doing interview questions.
Beautiful. So you're showing how you get results, you're showing the challenge, and then you're giving an example of how you manage that relationship, how you communicated understanding. So you didn't just um, you were sensitive to another human being in the process. So you actually communicated quite a lot in a short amount of time with that response.
Right. And it's really hard, freaking hard to do that. I know coming from experience as a rambler, you really have to be
Oh yeah.
conscious. Um, and so kind of just various practice in my head. I tried writing it out, like I tried doing like a question bank almost,
Uh-huh.
but then at least for me personally, I just found it or maybe not overwhelming, but like it just didn't fit well for me. But I know I've heard some people do that where they do like a question bank and they'll basically outline their answers. But I think having that understanding, I think also not just knowing your own accomplishments, but knowing your own self and your own weaknesses and strengths, even not just even career wise, but just even personality wise. So, I'm not exactly a social butterfly, but I like to think I have some kind of, like that dry humor wit that usually kind of helps establish that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I lean into that, and that seems to usually kind of help get that breaks the ice between me and the interviewers, and also um, kind of helps establish that personal connection.
Okay. Cool. Eric, is it cool if I share some of your story and make some points about the the phases that you have consciously engaged in to develop yourself?
Yeah, riff away.
Okay. So this is research that Dr. Judith Wright did on how adults transform, or it's kind of a buzzword. So how adults continue to develop, make it real basic. Um, so the first thing is there's yearning, and that's an emotional universal language. We all have deeper yearnings. We have to tap those yearnings. There's a deep well each individual has. That's the source that we can always go to within ourselves. Now, most of us don't really we have an underdeveloped relationship with our yearnings, so we have to start engaging, and that gives us more information about our deeper yearnings. So Eric knows this. Eric has a sense that there's more that he wants. He starts testing things out. He starts coming into Career Lab. He starts trying this stuff out. So he's engaging now, and he's practicing that engagement. And then he starts to uh, get to a something called revelating or revealing. So that's the next phase. So he's now starting to reveal more parts of himself to himself. So he's starting to see like, oh wow, there's kind of more to me. And this is a really important phase because Eric identified as an introvert. So he's like, wait a minute, do I really go out of my comfort zone? Is that, can I even do that? When I do that, I start to think I'm having imposter syndrome. Well, but he starts practicing with this and he's like, nah, you know what, I can do that. And I can style shift enough. I can shift my personality enough. I can pick up on these parts. Yeah, I have kind of a dry sense of humor. People pick up on that. Great. I can lean in on that. So then he's doing that and now he's liberating. That's the fourth phase. So he's acting in new ways. And mind you, at this point, discomfort comes up. As adults, we're always going to, if we're going to develop, we are going to be uncomfortable. That's just part of it. When we're kids, our brains are not hardwired in yet. Our systems were kind of open and we can download information in a way that actually is a little less painful. As adults, it's like it's going to be discomfort. So now at that point, Eric's like, whoa, I'm actually able to influence more. And he gives himself assignments to speak up more in meetings. He's going to say things and insert himself and move from that introvert and just pretend to be an extrovert because he wants to get the results. As he's doing that, he's like, wait a minute, now I'm becoming this other person, and that's the rematrixing. That's a now he is consciously shifting his personality. And then the final phase is dedicating, and that's something that Eric did a while ago. Is he said, you know what, I am going to be somebody who pushes myself out of my comfort zone throughout my entire career. I am going to be somebody who is continuing to develop. I am dedicating to that. And the cool thing about when he does that is that he starts to get more value out of all the uncomfortable things he's doing. So now he knows he needs to practice interviewing. He needs to practice bottom lining things because he recognizes, wait, I can talk and talk and talk, and people don't necessarily hear what I'm saying. I need to learn the skill of bottom lining this. So he tries out different things and he's like, oh, that one didn't work so well. But then he realizes, wait a minute, I can, as I'm just going about my day, I can be practicing how I'm going to deliver this kind of thing. So he's getting more value out of literally like, I don't know, Eric, I'm imagining you like driving from one location to another and you're practicing. This is part of now the game that you're playing. And you're increasingly focused on developing yourself. So that's to set a map for everybody listening in. That's what you can be doing, is noticing your deep desires, your hungers, then taking action on those hungers, reaching out for coaching or to your network, to mentors, to your teammates, saying, hey, here's the stuff that I want. You're engaging now. And then you start to realize more about yourself and you start to share that even more. And then you start new behaviors, you're liberating. And then once you're liberating, you're doing new behaviors, you start to recognize this. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the same person I was a month ago, 2 months ago, a year ago. Oh, cool. Oh, you know what? And in fact, I'm dedicating that this is the kind of person that I am. I'm always somebody who's learning and growing. All right. I hope that's helpful for everybody. And Eric, I hope that's helpful to hear reflected back to you about, this process of you over the past few years and to help frame how you're doing what you're doing so that you can do even more of this.
Oh yeah, I definitely think it's great to hear it reflected back. And I mean, it basically tracks with pretty much exactly what I did.
Right on. Oh, it's so cool. So now, what do you see as your next step as you're going into this new company? When do you start, by the way?
That's still TBD. Um, it'll kind of fluctuate between, I've got like a couple days I'll be out of office and just trying to manage that. So probably be over the next few weeks, most likely. I think next steps would be because I'm at the point where I'd be like a senior individual contributor. So really taking that manager steps. So kind of leaning more into that people managing, people influencing, um, and kind of pushing my boundaries um, on that. I think that'll just off the top of my head, kind of I think be the next course of action.
Okay. How are you with exiting the company that you're currently in?
Well, that's also TBD. Um, but um, because I it's not been made public yet. Um, but I think
God,
it'll be
have you talked with your manager?
no.
Okay.
I got to get on that. um, I mean, there'll definitely be discomfort, but um, it's just the nature of the free
Do,
market.
do you want my just straight up advice here?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Um, when especially as you are on your way out, you've already accepted an offer, um, letting them know. But and it's good that you don't have a solid start date at the other place yet, because for you to be able to say, hey, I want you to know I accepted an offer at another place. Um, and it's really important to me that I am leaving this place better than how I found it, or how you're going to use your own wording here. But so,
Right,
I wanted to let you know right away, so that we can, um, basically I will make sure that I'm leaving in a good way that is helpful to, um, what you've got going on here. And how do you see that playing out, Eric?
um, I think there'll definitely be. Hold on a second, let me get to a better ideal spot versus before.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it'll definitely be just devastated. I think she'll definitely be angry with me. Um, I think especially because I handle almost the entirety of like an entire business unit.
Uh-huh.
But I think really willing to spend more time before just doing like the 2 weeks or whatever to help transition, I think will be greatly appreciated.
In for the new company too, by the way, if you're communicating that to them, like, look, like, it's really important to me that I don't leave this company in the lurch. All you're doing with that is communicating to them that if you leave them, that's how you're going to handle it with them. So they companies tend to be understanding.
Right. And no, they've been really flexible. I know they're gonna let me because I've got a kid in preschool, finishing out preschool, and they were gonna let me basically stay in the area I'm in so my kid can finish out preschool versus for having me relocate up to the new area ASAP. So I don't think the flexibility should be a concern on their part. And
Okay.
they shouldn't react negatively to that from what impressions they've given me.
And for everybody listening into, so when you said, she'll be angry, to understand that when anger's there, we always know that hurt and fear are there also. So we don't get anger without the hurt and the fear. And so it can be useful to know, to that, look at it that way and say, okay, so what are her concerns? What are the things that she's
Right.
most afraid
Right.
of?
Yeah.
How
And I know
go
those
ahead,
will
Eric.
definitely, yeah, I was gonna say, I know those basically the root cause, I think, hurt because she had been training me for a long time on this product group that I've been managing, that I was taking over from her. And so I'm sure she'll be hurt that I'm leaving after training me up so much, and then I think fearful because then there's not really a true backup yet for me. So there's going to be a lot of extra stuff that's going to be spread around until they can get somebody in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the hurt. So what's one of the things that you can do to address the hurt?
Um, I'm kind of already doing it in a sense, just because I'm training another planner in
Mm-hmm.
this product group. So I think just probably ramp that up as much as I can to kind of alleviate that.
And relationships for everybody listening in, relationships are so important, not just for your career, but if you think about life overall. When I exit this planet, like I want to think about all the people I've touched, and that I did that well. And also from a strategic tactical way of looking at it, for you to maintain a good relationship with everybody you've worked with, because you never know what's going to happen in the future, and for when you may need somebody, or when they're going to need you again, that kind of thing. So I don't know, Eric, what are some other ways that you might be able to address some of the hurt?
Um, I think do what I can to try to help put stuff in place. So whoever comes in has a lot of like a knowledge bank that they can lean on heavily.
So that
Um,
you're addressing the fear there. But in terms of the hurt, so hurt is has to do with our hunger to be seen,
mhm.
to be acknowledged. And we all have it, but a lot of us are really uncomfortable with it. I did a quick little video thing about Gus Walls, and him, pointing and saying, "Hey, that's my dad." That was a great example of hunger for affirmation and acknowledgement, and wanting to acknowledge his dad. And we all have that. It's very, very vulnerable. So a lot of us are kind of out of touch with it. But what are ways that you might just be able to acknowledge her, and recognize the ways she's supported you?
um, I think maybe acknowledging that she's been a really good manager to me, honestly.
Mhm.
I think acknowledging that, I think emphasizing also, which is also truthful, that I'm not leaving because of her or her management style. Um,
Whoa.
so I think those two things I think would help a lot with addressing that.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's a really good one. Letting somebody know, like, hey, it's not you. Like, I'm doing this because there's opportunity over here that I want. But
Right,
I
right.
like, you have helped me develop. You have helped me develop to where I am at now, and I really appreciate it. And I don't know, depending on the levity there, like, and the next company is going to appreciate the development that you put into me. But I want you to know that it means a lot to me.
No, that all makes sense. And that's gonna, well, maybe not the company taking advantage of the development. But the other stuff is definitely how I was gonna try to approach it. Maybe the other thing is, I work for a private equity backed firm, so who knows what's gonna happen there.
Gotcha.
They tend to be a bit more ruthless when it comes to things.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do you have any concerns there?
Um, I could see them walking me out potentially for whatever reason they want to make up. I don't think they would, but I also wouldn't be shocked. Even though
Got
I'm
it.
not going to competitor or anything, I mean, it's a completely different industry. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, Eric, this is fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to share or get support on?
I know I touched on it last week, I think, or the last time we chatted, but definitely lean on your LinkedIn network, even if it's people that maybe you haven't kept in contact with. Don't hesitate to reach out for them because you'll probably be surprised how they react.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. I will give a bottom line on that. So, reaching out to people who you may not, Eric reached out to somebody that he hadn't connected with in years, but knew him well back in many years ago, and was very quickly excited to say, yeah, I can think of opportunities, I can think of ways to help you out. I can we Most human beings like helping other people. It makes us feel good. I love helping people. It's part of why I do what I do. And
Right.
so if somebody reaches out to me and is like, hey, can you introduce me to this person, or can you give me a recommendation? I act on that. It's like it's a gift that I get to give somebody. It's very meaningful to me. And so your point, Eric, about never underestimate people from your past wanting to help you out. It's a great point. And even to the point of following up a couple times, there's so many ways now. I sometimes will lose track of a text message or a message on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. And so I just had a conversation this morning with somebody who had emailed me, but they emailed me an old email address. I never got it. And they said, hey, I thought I'd try to reach out again. And I was like, I'm so glad you did. Like, oh my God, like, yes, we got to talk, we have to connect. I'm sorry I didn't think to reach out sooner. That's going to tend to be what happens for you. Most of us have more goodwill coming our way than we recognize. Most of us are our biggest critic. I mean, look, I've worked with, at this point, hundreds, maybe I'm at thousands. I've worked with a lot of people. Common denominator in everybody is that you are your harshest critic. You make things more difficult for yourself than you need to. I make things more difficult for myself than I need to. When I reach out for support, I usually get it. It's not always in the way I want it, but it usually comes. So Eric, that's a great point. Thank you for reminding us about that. And if
Um,
oh
George,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Kirsten,
I do have a question about that.
yeah,
Because
thank you for jumping in.
I do I would like to reach out to my former colleagues, but the position wasn't the greatest. I was let go from a position.
Uh-huh.
And so there are people that I would really like to stay in contact with, but at the same time, I don't know what was told to them, and I feel like there's a lot of reservations on their end, and so I'm not quite sure how to navigate it.
Gotcha. Can we dig in a little bit
Of
here?
course.
Okay. When were you let go?
So I was let go the first week of May
Okay.
of this year. Yeah.
And why were you let go?
That's the strange part, and this is what I really think it was is my company moved into a new direction. It hired a new executive director, and this is for a museum, for the Driehaus Museum. And ultimately, I do believe the Driehaus Museum is moving into a new direction and, restructuring, but the circumstances around it were rather negative. And so, to a certain extent, and of course, this is my personal perception. I think there must have been some sort of personality conflict, or something that she did not like about me, because I was put on a PIP, and yet when I showed that PIP to you know um uh career counselors, they were saying it was it was a red flag, that they found the PIP to be very subjective, very uninformative, um, and it was presented in a weird way. It was presented to me a day before my executive director went out on medical leave for 6 weeks and left somebody else to supervise me.
Okay. And what were the main things on the PIP?
Well, there was things about time management, things about critical thinking skills, uh, things about um, not initiating, not being collaborative. But I will say, I was hired under a previous executive director, and when the new executive director came on board, first she was only supposed to be temporary, and I feel like when she did become permanent, like, we never could figure out what my job title was truly supposed to be, what my duties truly were supposed to be. So I kind of really started feeling I was just, you know, an olive on a tree, kind of just there. But I really believe the museum was moving into a new direction, but I don't think they handled it effectively.
What kind of results did you get while you were there?
Results in terms of people's reactions, or
No, in terms of the like what um were you trying to get more membership? Were what was your responsibilities there?
I was administrative coordinator, so I was a little bit of everything. I was doing payroll. I was assisting the administrative director, but then I was turned over to the director of development. Then I became, helping the operations manager. So I kind of really feel like they just couldn't figure out what I should be or where I should be. So every time I started a new project, then they wanted me someplace else. So I never felt like I could develop the quality or the quantity that should be delivered, because I was bebopping around so much.
Got it. Okay. Um, well, so your first question of reaching out,
Mhm.
what's your intention of reaching out to former coworkers?
So, for example, the director of the foundation, I've been looking into getting into like foundation work. And so I wanted to connect with her, to discuss, perhaps like what types of foundations to best put my attentions towards.
Uh-huh.
And then same with the director of development, because I did start learning some of the skills needed in development. So I wanted to speak with her about, what types of development jobs would be appropriate, knowing what I know.
Okay. Well, from everything you've shared, I think here's my hunch, take what's useful and throw away what's not. And I'm in part to talking to the larger audience. Um, so anytime that a breach happens in a friendship, a relationship, at work, that there's the pain of the breach of that. So there's a way that you're grieving the loss of that relationship. And that may go on for a while, but it also brings up all of the breaches and sometimes people use the word trauma. I'm if it's helpful then use it. um all the stuff from childhood and high school and etc. And to understand, I always like to look at a human being as I'm not 42 years old. I'm 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, etc., all happening at the same time. And anytime something in my current state here on planet Earth happens, a breach happens, I'm let go of a company or something, it's going to bring up all the past stuff too. The reason I'm saying this is I think that the majority of your discomfort in reaching out to people that your firm or colleagues probably has to do mostly with you in your discomfort. I suspect there's not a lot of ill will there towards you. I suspect it most of that stuff is just your personal discomfort. How does that land for you, Kirsten? Oh, you're on mute.
I think for the two people that I do want to reach out to, that does sound correct. I've been very loosely communicating with two others, but I can tell by the way they're communicating that they are being extremely careful, extremely conservative. And that's where, I'm wondering, is it even appropriate then for me to reach out to other people, or has, something been communicated to them? Because I don't know what was said, so maybe they themselves are feeling that they need to be cautious.
Okay. Perhaps. Now, did they give you specific feedback when they let you go?
No, no, they just felt I hadn't met what they wanted me to meet. But when I had first received the PIP and I had asked, how I would be measured, who would be measuring me, I was never given anything quantitative. I was never given any goals. It was just, it would be up to the executive director and how she felt.
Got it. So, can I share my hunch about what the core what I suspect happened?
Of course.
My hunch is that you are good at handling the things that people say, okay, here, handle this.
Hmm.
And my hunch is that they don't really know what they need. And so they would ask you to do things and you would start moving that direction. You start getting more information. But as you're asking and trying to go in that direction, they don't really know themselves because they're kind of testing stuff out. And so your questions and the ways that you would go about trying to move forward would just increase the anxiety for them. And so over a period of time, they're just saying to themselves, I don't think Kirsten's going to work. And they probably don't even really understand why. But it's just kind of a felt thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, it's kind of too bad. Um, and so I think that if you're reaching out, the way that the learning experience, because if we look at career development overall as God or universe or whatever trying to teach us lessons, then this might be a very big lesson for you in you taking more decisive action and perhaps making more mistakes, but being more what people I think would refer to as a self-starter or somebody who just drives for results.
Okay.
And and even in you reaching out and asking for feedback and stuff and saying, you know, let's just say you're reaching out to Mary, I think I am seeing why I was let go. That makes a lot. This is what I'm kind of understanding. I wanted to check in with you though about what my gifts are and where you see um, me going into a spot that would be a good fit for me developing. And so you're kind of like picking up the reins and driving things more, even just in this. The worst thing that's going to happen is that they're not going to respond to you.
Right, right, right.
And, you're now in you're available. And so you're going to have to be doing this with a lot of other people too. You're going to have to be reaching out and taking initiative.
Right, right.
And so it's like, in a way, like you're kind of forced to learn this skill. And one of the reasons this is my assumption is I've learned over the years in helping people interview that a lot of companies suck at interviewing,
Yes,
and
they do.
a lot of companies don't even really know what they need.
Yes, that I'm finding out. Yes.
Okay, so my like bottom line story on this one that I think a lot of people get is a client interviewed so well at a company that at the end of the interview, the owner says, geez, it's really too bad we can't hire you, but you asked such good questions in this interview that we realize we're hiring for the wrong thing. And so, I almost feel like I should pay you a consulting fee.
Right.
But what I can do for you is I'm actually going to make an introduction to somebody with a different company because I think you'd be a good fit over here. You have helped us see that we need to do a little more research about what we actually need here. So
Okay.
my guess is at your last company, they're kind of in that space at the museum that they don't really know what they need. And you kind of running around trying to like meet their needs wasn't helping.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the approach that would have worked more is for you to be more assertive and say, in my time here, this is what I need to be more effective in these jobs. And I think that this kind of thing has to happen. And so I'm going to be addressing da da da. And for you to include yourself more, for you to deepen the belief in you that you matter, that you are enough, and that in the ways that you're too much is actually a good thing. So you developing yourself would actually be developing the museum. That's just, that I say that because I've seen this with a lot of people I work with. How's all this
Okay.
landing for you?
No, I do agree with you. I do agree with you, and I also think there were a lot of times where I did where I wasn't as assertive, where I felt an emotion, but I simply let it pass. Um,
That's oh, I'm so Kirsten, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear not the painful stuff, but that you're looking at it so objectively, you know, and being with that and looking at like, okay, here's the ways that I could develop myself, and I'm getting the feedback from, being let go here. I think
yeah,
that that's really great.
I've been doing, I too am an introvert, and the fact that I'm networking like physically going out and networking, which is, um, it's taken a lot of strength um, on my part because it's just not something I'm always comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha. Well, cool. Well, Kirsten, way to be leaning into that. And, we're coming up on the end of the hour here, so I'm going to start wrapping up. But is there anything else that you want to address, or any way that you want to use
I guess my
equanimity as an
only other
accountability?
question is, having been let go the way I did, is there a way for me to still ask someone to write a recommendation letter for me, or is that like
Absolutely.
okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah. That it's an incredibly vulnerable thing to do. And if you're finding it a challenge, well,
mm-hmm.
I'll just say to anybody listening in, I mean, imagine that. Like, I'm let go, and now I'm going to reach out to that place and ask for a recommendation. I mean, that you are seriously challenging some limiting beliefs by doing that. So
Okay,
even if you get no response, it's
mm-hmm.
worth you doing it for your personal growth, for
Okay,
you affirming yourself.
okay,
And I've let people go. Um, and there's very few people that I wouldn't write a recommendation for. I would, because I will say, here's the stuff that so and so is good at. I recommend them in this kind of a way. These are the attributes that I see. And then if somebody calls me up and says, well, it looks like they were let go, and say, yeah, I did not have the systems in place to train them up to where I needed them. And I needed to bring in somebody who is already at this other level, or this type of person, or whatever. That's the way that I would handle it. I can't say how other
right,
people would handle it, but when somebody asks me for a recommendation, I take it very seriously, and I think a lot of people do. Like, I think that people would say, "Hey, yeah, let I owe it to her to help her out."
okay, okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
you're
No,
welcome.
those questions I've been sitting with for a while, so I knew I needed to address them. So,
Thank you.
well,
Thank you for jumping in here, and your vulnerability. And there's a lot of people that you just served by you asking the questions that you've asked. So I
well,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, George.
You're welcome. Well, Kirsten, stay in touch with me. I'm going to speak a little bit to everybody. There's a few ways that you can engage with me. I love it, of course, when you jump in here on Career Lab Wednesday. You can also set up a time to speak with me one-to-one, get to know a little bit more about you. I can often help you take a next step in there. If a coaching relationship is something you're interested in, we can talk about that too. Then there's the personality assessment. I just find this so incredibly helpful. I made it in a way that we can get it out to people, no cost. So there's a link to that as well. You get to know your style. And there's a video then that helps you recognize other people's styles. That's the real point of it, is to help you learn the language of personality styles so that you can communicate more effectively in your personal and professional relationships. There's that. And then I am also putting out more content on YouTube. So check that out if you like getting little tidbits about emotional intelligence and career development. Stay tuned for that. And then my final thing, the winter is coming, and I am hosting breathwork training and ice water immersion. It's not icy yet, but if that's something that you want to build up to, take a look at that. I am going to be doing more of that this September and October, helping people get ready for the winter, helping you learn how to embrace the cold so that you love wintertime instead of dread it. So those are a few things that I'm doing. So check it out. Take a look at those. I'll be doing the ice water stuff starting in September, and I've got a landing page for that now. So everybody, thank you for joining in. Blessings to you in your career development. It's a fantastic space for you to find a lot of meaning, for you to reach your potential. That's the framework that I always lay out. Your career is a spot for you to become who you can become. It's where we spend a lot of our lives. It's where we create a lot of meaning for ourselves. And the importance of emotional intelligence in your development, of you understanding yourself more, understanding the superpower of your emotions, that those are the things that will help you develop, help you connect more with other people. And for all of that, you can keep developing that here in Career Lab Wednesday, and also with the tools that I have online, as well as one-to-one coaching with me. All right, many blessings, everybody. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, George.
You bet, Kirsten. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.